Well, Sixers fell to 0-2 after a 115-107 loss to the Toronto Raptors, kicking off their season with an 0-2 start. Kelly Oubre and Kyle Lowry scored some points toward the end to make it close, but so what? Who cares? How's everyone doing?
What was that? What in the
this
world was that performance?
PHLY Sixers Postgame show brought to you by Bet365 and Rothman Orthopedic, two sponsors who are way better than the performance that these Sixers gave us here tonight.
I was going to say, are we even sure that
They
Bet365
don't want to be associated with this game?
Want to be reminded that they're attached to that performance in any way, shape, or form? Oh my God, that was miserable.
No, there was the play that was miserable. The sort of meandering way they ran about their offense for the first half, that was miserable. And then there was a foul calling, and that was miserable. And look, Kyle said it on Twitter. If I complain about the refs, it's in no way because it cost the Sixers the game. Okay. The Sixers cost the Sixers the game. But the rest did cost me 40 minutes of my life that I would love to get back. They should never shoot 100 free throws in an NBA game. I don't know if they officially hit that number, but it was darn close.
Listen, there have been times where people have come at me a little bit for calling Tony Brothers a domestic terrorist. And like, look, that's loaded language, right? But I don't know how you come to any other conclusion when you watch teams shoot basically 100 free throws in an NBA game across 48 minutes. That was an absolute disgrace. The only thing more disgraceful, though, was that Sixers performance. I guess, I mean, where do you want to start? Because we just have an abundance of nonsense to talk about.
I feel like we have to start with Tyrese Maxey. You started the game 2 for 3, and then I'm not sure if he hit another shot the rest of the way. He, of course, did. He ended up 6 for 23 from the field for 24 points. That line salvaged in a big way by the fact that he got to the free throw line 12 times. Ended up with 4 assists on the night, which partially his fault, partially not. Nobody on the team can shoot. That's probably point number 2 that we will get to. And just not nearly enough. Not nearly enough.
Yeah, so I want to start with the playmaking component there, or the assist number, because yes, some of it is these guys couldn't hit the broadside of a barn most of the night, other than Kelly Oubre, who somehow became Mr. Efficiency on this team, which means we're really through the looking glass tonight. The big problem for me with this game, but also game 1 against Milwaukee, both teams have played to stop Tyrese Maxey, the scorer, and he has had no answer for that. There have been no counters, right? And those 4 assists were all, I believe, accumulated in the first quarter. And while I think in the fourth quarter, as it got a little frazzled and they're down 20, and so Toronto's playing a little fast and loose, by and large, for like 2.5 quarters of that game, he didn't really look to play make at all. Or at least when he did look to play make, it was on very simple reads, like very basic stuff on the perimeter. And any time that he got inside the arc and is getting downhill, I just saw no vision from him as a passer. And look, even as someone who has questions, concerns, however you want to frame it, about him as a playmaker, he's been markedly worse there than basically any point last season. And the first 2 teams they played are not the same caliber, to put it lightly, right? Like, I think you have plenty of excuses against Milwaukee to say, look, Brook Lopez, great rim protector, has been in DPOY conversations before. Giannis, great help defender. They showed him a lot of length. That's on some level, understandable performance. There is no excuse to go out there and have a clunker like this tonight. And honestly, one of the other things that I'm now a little worried about, having watched that game, is that thumb issue that he picked up at the end of the preseason worse than they're letting on? Because I thought watching him shoot, and I'd have to go back on the tape and, look shot by shot by shot, so many of his jumpers felt like they were just way short to me. Like not, oh, he missed, or, oh, yeah, he got some tough bounces, tough rolls, whatever it might be. It was a lot of just like, that shot has no chance of going in. It's hitting front rim. It's hitting, nothing on a couple of them. I don't know what's up with him, but he needs to figure it out and figure it out quickly.
Yeah. 2 for 12 from 3-point range, some of them coming at the end when he was desperate and just trying to look for a way to get a quick 3 up, but a lot of them coming beforehand. I agree. It seemed like a lot of them were coming up short. And when you have so little other options and so little space, like driving these 2 games has been tough. And I think this was another instance where Pirtle and Boucher were really strong at the rim, and you need something to counteract that. I felt like early on, he did have a little bit going in terms of his playmaking. He had that nice behind the back pass to Kelly in the corner. He had another
Yeah.
pick drive to KJ Martin early on. So I thought he was looking to get others involved early. And then I agree, as the game went on in the middle 2 periods, quarters, I don't even know why I said periods. I don't even watch hockey. How can I get regardless? It doesn't matter.
Brett Brown used to call them periods, so we can
Yeah.
defer to the guy with the
My brain is
Bostonian
mush
accent.
after watching a lot of bad basketball. But I think he got a little bit of tunnel vision, and I think when Tyrese has gotten frustrated early on, it has not brought out the best version of Tyrese. And I do agree. I wonder if the thumb thing is bothering him. I wonder if it's just a cold spell at the exact wrong time. I wonder if the fact that defenses is completely gearing up to stop him and throwing everything they can at him at the perimeter, especially because both these teams have had relatively strong shot blockers. Obviously, Pirtle isn't quite in the Brook Lopez category, but he is strong at the rim. It's just they need desperately anyone who can functionally dribble a basketball on the floor right now. And for so much of this game, the only other option has been Kyle Lowry. And we brought up our
Yeah.
concerns with Lowry in the pregame show. He's not a solution, but so many of these role players are built to play alongside of Embiid and Maxey and Paul George. And now they've been asked to go up 2 rungs on the ladder because 2 of your 3 stars are out. And it's just, we get into really bad Caleb Martin isolation ball real quickly.
Oh, he was
Well,
bad tonight.
no, I'm sure we'll get to him. And it's just why we're right back in last year's predicament of why would any team even remotely be concerned about giving anyone on this roster a 4-on-3 right now. So you just throw everything you have at Tyrese, and he is not handling it well. And I'm still not going to completely overreact to this 2-game sample with Tyrese, in large part because they are not built for Tyrese, like to play off of Tyrese. And they're not going to ask, like, if they are asking Tyrese Maxey to be a number 1 option on offense, they're just not going to contend anyway. This is not the role that he has been, preparing for over the summer. This is not the role that he would ideally be placed in if they're going to win. But I would have liked to have seen a better, handling, a better adjustment than we've seen so far. I still just can't believe they lost to the Raptors 905. It's just,
Yeah, when somebody said that in our
frustrating.
Discord during the game, I was like, that's the best way. We could have headlined the show like Raptors 905 beat the Sixers, because that
Yeah.
is absolutely what it felt like. I am more down on Maxey than at least it sounds like you are. In part,
Oh, I'm down on the way he's played. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to not project that forward too much.
Yeah, and that's fair. I just think one of the things that's most disappointing to me is that a lot of what we heard during the preseason and even before that, like dating back to the summer when he signed his new contract, was like, look, I learned a lot from that stretch last year where I did have to be the guy for really like half the season, right? Like this is not his first time as, number 1 option Tyrese Maxey. And we've seen some highs out of that type of look, and we've certainly seen some lows. And when they've lost, it has not always been his fault. And I have a level of tolerance for, like, I'm not expecting him to go out and shoot 45% from 3 and the efficiency to be sparkling, because the contests will be tighter. There'll be more doubles. There'll be more traps. Like, everything is going to be tougher for him. So you can grade him on a curve to some extent. I think the issue is that he has not been even close to acceptable level, let alone like, oh, I might lead a team to a win type of level. And he just has had no feel for what they need at any given moment. Like he should be able to see how they're covering him and be able to respond to that adequately at this point. And I know that just signing a new contract does not change who you are as a player, right? But now there are real expectations on Tyrese Maxey. Like, you have gone from, hey, you're the fun young player who it's like nice to have you. Now you're a franchise foundational pillar. You do not have the luxury of having poor games. And frankly, like, look, everybody is going to have tough shooting nights, right? The big problem is that he's had no ability to impact the game otherwise so far. The playmaking hasn't been there. We don't expect him, like a Joel Embiid or like maybe like an athletic wing like Paul George, to, if he's had a tough shooting night and is not playmaking, to go on the other end and like, I'm going to lock somebody down. I'm going to make.
And he was pretty bad defensively too.
Yeah, so it's been a comprehensively bad start for him, and certainly we're not throwing out the whole body of work, right? And I think we'll both sit here and say and believe, as a number 2 or even number 3, depending on if Paul George is cooking on a given night, and the built-in chemistry that he's got with Joel Embiid, I still have tons of confidence in him. But I think it's been a bit of a reality check for, this plan that they ostensibly have for the season, to be like, hey, we're going to get Joel and Paul lots of rest. Well, some of that relies on Tyrese Maxey being good enough to be a true number 1 guy and pull everybody else along on a night like tonight. Maybe not against the Bucks. I think that's probably unrealistic. Certainly he is good enough, or should be good enough, that he can be the guy and beat the Raptors 905. Like, the other night you can explain away. This one is just unacceptable to me.
Yeah. No, and at the very least he did get, but then again, everyone got to the free throw line. Thank you, Tony. But like I said, that did salvage it a little bit, and I'd love to see him really
put the hashtag on Twitter, Derek. Hashtag Thank you, Tony, for the free throws.
But no, he was bad in every other facet. The shots that were coming up short, the drives to the rim that didn't have a high percentage look, the playmaking after the first quarter, the defense, especially the off-ball stuff. And that's why, in part, when everyone's like, oh man, Maxey, he added some weight, he got stronger, maybe he's going to be a better defender. And I agree, it helps, but Maxey's on-ball defense was oddly not my biggest concerns earlier on in his career. It was a lot of the communication off-ball stuff, and I thought he got beat on a lot of backdoor cuts here for most of the night. He was just bad in a night where and again, this is the Raptors. You didn't need to be great. Like, the whole team didn't need to be exceptional for them to win. They needed one person to really carry them and for them to not lose a possession battle, which we talked about earlier on. Well, neither of those happened. And the effort on the glass was pretty pathetic. But Maxey was not good enough either.
Yeah. So, I mean, moving forward, I need to see him instill some sense of calm in these guys, right? Like, I think one of the things that stood out, and this is not just his fault, I blame, there are a lot of veteran guys that are in this rotation that we hear like, oh, he's a game manager. He does all the little things, and, et cetera, et cetera. And none of those guys did any of those things tonight, right? It was a lot of headless chickens and people not playing connected and guys.
Did you use headless chicken again? Did headless chicken
No,
was 2 for 2?
I feel like headless chicken is slowly becoming the early theme of this season, at least for you and I in our conversations. But when you have these guys who are in their mid 30s, late 30s, even like the guys like Oubre in his late 20s, although Kelly was one of the only guys who had a semblance of a clue or an outline of a plan, or however you want to put that tonight. It just, like, if Kyle Lowry is coming into the game to be the settler and then he's passing out of fairly open threes in the middle of the jumper, it's like, how are these guys this disorganized? And this, I just don't understand it. It's one thing that, you miss guys on passes, that cuts aren't well timed, that they don't know the whole playbook yet, things like that. But there is just a lack of organization on every level, a lack of confidence in what they're doing. And I would like to see Tyrese. Look, we saw Tyrese in the playoffs last year, granted with Joel Embiid, a little bit different when you have that guy to help you out. But we saw Tyrese in some tough moments in those playoffs, not just on the floor, but in huddles, talking with guys, rallying the troops and like, hey, look, let's get a couple stops and then the game will change. You hit a momentum 3, you do a couple. And I just have not sensed the same like even keel mental approach from him to start this year. I don't know why he feels so rushed. Like he should be deep enough into his career that, okay, Joel and PG are out, but you're good enough to lead these guys. And I just haven't seen that yet.
No, he looked rushed and flustered the first 2 games, which is not something we typically see. Maxey, typically when he's playing at 100 miles per hour, it's under control and, leveraged and used to his advantage in these first 2 games. It has not been the case at all.
Well, probably a good time to take a little chill pill, Derek, and step back. And then we'll be back to rant about everybody else on this godforsaken basketball team tonight. How about
a weird
that?
chill pill, but go for it, buddy.
Well, everybody, I have a fun new partner that we're working with to tell you about. That's the good people at Skims. Shout out to our close personal friend, Kim Kardashian, for coming through. Next day mailed us some nice new underwear for us to wear. Check out. Look, we are in a line of work where Derek and I, and certainly Devon, are working lots of late nights. We're in the grimy Wells Fargo Center or somewhere else. And you don't really think about it as you go to the arena. But when you're there, you're like, man, I really wish I had a more comfortable pair of boxers, a more comfortable pair of briefs. There's this itchy tag. There's this thing wrong with it. Well, thankfully, Skims came to us and said, we have a better product and we want to share that with you. Now, they sent me, I don't know what they sent Derek. It was, personal requests on all this stuff. They sent me a stretch boxer brief of 2 different, a 3-inch length, so you're showing a little bit more leg, and a 5-inch length boxer brief.
We all know Kyle doesn't mind showing a little leg.
Hey, you guys have seen me in shorts on our set on the show. I'm in sweatpants right now, so I won't be showing anything off tonight. But with their stretch underwear, you don't have to make the compromises that you have to make with other lifestyle brands. So whether it's the tags on the inseam that I mentioned becoming bothersome and itchy, or the underwear itself riding up throughout the day, Skims stretch 5-inch boxer briefs not only look good, but they stay in place, they feel great, and they're versatile. So I can wear them to the gym, I can wear them to work. And quite frankly, I told the people at Skims when I got on the call with them after about we'll call it like a week-long test run that we had. The best thing I can say is that I do not notice them at all. And that's the feeling that you want to have when you put on your underwear every day. So shop Skims Men's at skims.com. Let them know we sent you. That's very important, guys. After you place your order for Skims, select podcast in the survey, select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. Please, guys, I want to get sent more of this so I have comfortable underwear, sweatshirts, sweatpants all year long. So thank you to our new friends at Skims.
We also want to make sure we tell you about Empire today. I think I end up doing the home repair ad reads because I am borderline incompetent, so I need all the help I can get. If you have flooring that you need done as well, Empire Today is where you should turn. With Empire Today, get shop at home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a price match guarantee. Empire Today is so good that they have some copycats, but those copycats can't beat Empire Today on quality, service, or speed, so they advertise low-quality products that Empire simply won't carry. Empire Today won't promise lowest prices because doing so means that they would be putting flooring in your home that they wouldn't put in theirs. Empire Today keeps shopping for floors simple with a curated product selection. Their philosophy is to help you find what you need, not to overwhelm you with thousands of choices and substitutes. Empire's product team exhaustively combs through thousands of product samples each year to find the perfect styles. And Empire Today has a virtual floor designer, which makes shopping for floors much easier. It's easy. Just snap a picture and instantly see how new floors will look in your room. Flooring is all that Empire Today does. They live and breathe flooring, so you can be confident you're getting honest, upfront advice. They also service their own warranties. So with Empire Today, you won't have to track down a manufacturer's phone number. Schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive a $350 off discount when they use a promo code PHLY. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/PHLY for details.
So before we get back into the basketball, 2 quick Winona, my girl Winona comments in the
No, we won't, Winona.
in the chat. First, she said, "Let's see them" about the Skims. I'm going to pass on that one. This is a family show, Winona. Number 2, she said, "Oh, it's just for men." No, of course not. I would imagine most of our audience is men, Winona. But if you go and check out the the Skims women department and use that same drop down and say, we sent you, I'm sure the Skims team would be happy to know that the PHLY Sixers crew has such a broad and diverse audience that we're also sending them some of our women friends and listeners of the show. So shout out to Skims.
Do you have any more real thoughts on Maxey here? I feel like we could probably talk for longer. But
yeah, I mean, I don't want
this-
to. I feel like I've sufficiently buried him enough in the first 15 minutes of the show, and
we've also got a lot of people. There's a lot of victims on this podcast.
Well, so we do have a super chat from Bernard McCoy who says the problem with Maxey is pace. Nick Nurse needs to stop telling him to play fast because he's getting tired. Let him bring the ball up with no Iverson screens. It's too much. Fatigue in all caps. I would say this. You want to lean into Maxey's pace, certainly, right? And I do understand the inclination to play with pace because if you watch them play half-court offense, they were not exactly firing on all cylinders there. So if you can get stops and, get out and score before the defense is set, that will help offset some of the half-court issues. And to the point of the Iverson cuts, the one thing I would say to that is, look, they got to get him shaken free in any way possible. Like, yes, ideally, you get him the ball a little easier and don't have to run him through a maze of screens. But unfortunately, he's so high up that scouting report and such a high priority with Joel and Paul in street clothes. I'm not sure how you avoid stuff like that.
No, the Iverson cut is almost specifically designed to try to get a lethal perimeter scorer open who is otherwise being overloaded by a defense. I think you're going to have to use that, especially right now with Embiid and Maxey out. It's just they don't really have another threat, so they can still overload Maxey, even if he's running off of 6 screens. It really is like this roster without Paul George feels so much like last year. And so many of the players are so limited in what they can do either as a shooter or putting the ball on the deck that it's just real easy. And you combine that with the fact that Maxey is clearly not playing anywhere near the top of his game. And it's freaking ugly.
Bree, is there any way we can bring up the picture that I sent you in our Slack chat? Yeah. That is how I feel about the Sixers right now, Derek. Yeah. And I know that it was a running joke all throughout the offseason. Well, I shouldn't say joke. It was a running bit, right? Because it was about guys shorter than me. And granted, tonight was a pretty exceptional situation where Kyle Lowry, Jared McCain, and Reggie Jackson are probably never going to play together at the same time ever again, I would hope, because foul trouble is not going to coincide with absences to their stars and yada, yada, yada. But it really does. Like the fact that you have basically no creation on this team unless you play a bunch of 6 foot tall guys is really dispiriting. And I know that you take away your two or three main offensive hubs. Of course, you're not going to have a lot of shot creation, but it really does drive home, Derek, the stuff that we've said throughout the offseason and, in predicting what we think they'll do at the deadline, that, man, they're going to probably have to get a shot creator and like a real shot creator if they're looking for a final piece going into the playoffs.
No, most of the people whose decision-making you trust are 105 years old. And the people with any kind of athleticism, you don't really trust their decision-making. It's a very imperfect combination for sure. For sure. And they're also too small. No, it's...
I just had to throw that in there. I just was like burning a hole in my brain.
Going to the fives, because I feel like the 5 men were a big... outside of Maxey, were a pretty big story in this one. Drummond came a little short on Bree's pregame over under, but put up a pretty good stat line, I would say. 11 points, 9 rebounds, 4 steals, 2 blocks. I thought that stat line oversold his contributions a little bit, especially the defensive ones. He made a nice block after he had a terrible outlet pass. He had a couple good steals, especially there in the fourth quarter to try to get them back in. But in the first half, I thought he was getting cooked real badly on the pick and roll. He just was not able to get back to the roll man. And the points in the paint came down to 2 things. First of all, the offensive rebounding, but also then being unable to stop that pick and roll. And I thought you did see some limitations of Andre Drummond as a defender and Andre Drummond as a big minute solution. I think he's going to look much better in a 12 to 14 minute per game backup role. But I thought he was exposed a little bit defensively.
Derek, he had 3 defensive rebounds tonight.
Yeah.
3 defensive rebounds for a guy. And look, he was in foul trouble, finished with 5 fouls, and his minutes got yanked around all game. I understand it's hard to establish a rhythm, but you and I talked throughout the preseason and even during the opener, right, about there are times when you look at his rebounds and you're like, it's a little bit of like he's just getting all the cheapies, and some of the contested ones are not coming down with him. Like maybe he'll tip it up and he'll battle for it, but he's not. I really felt that tonight, right? I didn't think he made anywhere near as much of a difference as he needed to make. And you're right, like 11 points on 11 shots as a guy who is all his shots are by the rim. Not good, to put it lightly. That's just, you're not going to get it done. They went to hack a drumming. Somebody called it bang a drum. I think it was, I want to say Eric Kareen at The Athletic was the one who floated that. I really appreciated that. But yeah, I think, and it's weird, right? Because at least against Milwaukee, you would say that's a pretty uniquely challenging setup where Brook Lopez is going to drag him out. And so he's got to go back and forth between the rim and the 3-point line. Well, Jakob Poeltl is not taking jumpers at all, right? Like your defensive responsibilities are playing drop, staying in front of your guy and sealing him off for rebounds. And I thought he did a really poor job of navigating that pick and roll coverage tonight. So really disappointing night from him. I would then go to like, there was a point in this game where I would have declared Yabusele the player of the game, and we almost ended up there anyway. But I do think you look at how Toronto punished them in the paint and the lack of rebounding from Yabusele, and it's just like the guy's not a 5, right? Like we said coming into the game, this was a great test for him between Poeltl and Boucher, and why am I blanking on the guy that they had out? Mogbo, who was out there tonight, who they used as a 5. This was an opportunity for Yabusele to, stake a claim as, I'm a pretty solid third big, and I'll be here at that 5 spot for a lot of the year. This is really dispiriting. And I think some of it was they need to tune down the aggression a little bit on defense, I think, when they don't have PG and they don't have Joel, certainly.
You can't ask Yabu to be a last line of defense.
Yeah, but I mean, when he was in position to make a contest at the rim, they couldn't rebound. When he was in rebounding position, they couldn't contest anything at the rim. And with the way they were overplaying guys and getting back cut most of the night, it was just a layup line for Toronto for most of this game. And no, I think the bigger ticket concern here is the offense. Like the offense was just putrid, shot 38% from the field. But to let this Toronto team have a, relatively effective offensive night and to have to play out of half court sets for a good chunk of that game, I think that's why the offense is not able to succeed. As you gave them, they had 18 offensive rebounds in this game, Toronto.
They rebounded half of their missed shots. Yeah, they rebounded half of them.
Just insane to have that many offensive rebounds in a single game. And so some of that comes down to you don't have a true big man there. Like I still remain pretty optimistic about Yabu as a rotation guy. And I think, frankly, based on their team size and what we're seeing at the other positions, he's going to probably have to play a good amount of minutes at the 4. Like I don't think he's someone that when Joel comes back is going to fade from the rotation really at all. But I think they're going to be really challenged to get stops on these nights that they don't have Joel available, because I don't trust Drummond as like a normal pick and roll defender. And then once they have to go small, it's just been a layup line so far.
Yeah. No, and it really was like this game was frustrating for a lot of reasons. First, the offense was putrid. It's not great. The rebounding was a massive problem. But this was a Toronto team that if you confine them to a half-court game, you should have won that game.
Yeah.
And actually, according to Clean and Glass, the Sixers averaged more points per play in the half-court than Toronto did. There were 2 problems. First of all, the Sixers, when they missed, almost always turned into a fast break the other way, especially in the first half. when again the Sixers seemed like they were really trying to challenge him at the rim. It wasn't working. That turned into a fast break opportunity for Toronto a lot. But when Toronto did miss in the half court, and again, I think the Sixers' first shot defense was mostly outside of overplaying, which I agree happened a lot. You understand a little bit why they were trying to do that because they didn't have confidence in their half court offense. They're trying to get on break, but I think it did backfire against them. But when Toronto missed, they rebounded again half of their missed shots. So the even if you played decent first half or first shot defense, it was all thrown away by transition opportunities and by the fact that you couldn't grab a rebound. I do think Yabu was a very key factor in that. And I agree with you. Unless like the other four are so fundamentally sound on the perimeter and so great at keeping their man in front of them, I don't I think what we're seeing here in terms of him being a center, I don't know if it's going to work. In fact, I have a pretty strong opinion that don't think it's going to work. I'm still open to seeing it a little bit more, in part because this regular season is about trying stuff. But the first look has not been great, and I think he's done a lot of good stuff.
As you get tail whipped by your cat over there, by the way.
My cat is wide awake. I think he's done some good stuff, like the hustle. I like.
Yes,
I thought his screen setting, like when Maxey actually made some shots early in the first quarter, both of those threes I think came off of Yabu screens. He does a real good job. Because Tyrese sort of has a tendency to go a little bit early before the big man gets set. We saw Drummond get hit with a moving screen early on. Yabu does a real good job of anticipating that. So a lot of centers, if the guard starts moving early, they have two options. They either don't make contact or they draw a foul. But like I said, it seems like Yabu does a real good job of anticipating that. That has just been leveling guys over the first two games. The hustle is there. I like that. The shooting has been, I think better than I expected. I'd still love to see more above the break, but I think it's been better than I expected. But he cannot protect the rim, and the rebounding has been a problem. And I'm interested to see what happens when he's able to play four a little bit more when Joel comes back. But yeah, the stuff at the five has not been great or good.
I think we're in complete agreement. Like I'm very interested to see him as a four, but I just think he is not. It's not his fault that he's not a five, right? He's being put in a position where he has a pretty low likelihood of success based on his own skills, how they're playing defense around him, and just the personnel that he's playing with. So I don't hold that against him. And frankly, like I think, based on what I've seen from the fans, people on social, whatever, like I think people have been reasonable about what he is and sort of, why he's not succeeding at a higher level in that spot. Like nobody's like, oh, terrible signing, like send this guy back to Europe or whatever. Everyone's pretty clear-eyed about what's happening.
Nope, I agree. The future still might be bright for Yabu.
Yeah, so maybe we'll talk about why the future is bright, and we'll come back to complain about this team some more. Well, guys, as Derek just said, the future is bright with our friends at Shady Rays. Get ready for another season ahead with quality shades that are built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that will never break the bank. Hundreds of options to choose from. You're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. Right now, I don't know if I want to tell you that they probably have a style that's in your team's favorite colors, because I don't think anyone wants to wear Sixers colors after that embarrassing performance. But maybe one day you'll get back in a patriotic mood, and then you'll look for your Sixers colored Shady Rays. You guys have seen me wear Shady Rays on the show, seen them on our sets. You've seen Bo on our PHLY Eagle show has had some bright ones that he brings. He's ready for a fun time. I go with ones that are a little more versatile, so I can use them while I'm driving, while I'm outside working, while I'm at the beach, whatever you might need. And if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, do not sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair backed by lost or broken replacements. Plus, you can always exchange them for a new pair or return them worry-free within 30 days if you don't love them. So there's no risk when you shop Shady Rays. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays giving out the best deal of the season and all seasons. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHLY for 35% off of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people.
And look, guys, I told you earlier that I am the home repair guy because I need all the help in the world. And next place we have to tell you about, they can help you with just about anything. I'm talking about Ace Hardware. You've got a leaky pipe at Ace Hardware Home Services. They're around the block with everything you need to fix it, including the person to do the fixing. Always a key point. and always something I love to read. If you've got an air conditioning issue, they've got a person for that as well. And if you've got a faucet you said you would fix last fall, they've got that person too, because now they're not just the helpful hardware folks, they're also the helpful home service and repair folks. From plumbing to heating and cooling, they've got the trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long. Ace Hardware Home Services. They're bringing helpful home, the helpful you love, from the store to your front door. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at www.acehardwarehomeservices.com to get you started on your next project.
Is now the time to all right, another super chat that we have here from our good pal
Team is
Davon.
exhausting. Should I be this exhausted 2 games into a season? I feel like I should not be this exhausted watching basketball.
Well, presumably the big guy will come back soon, and PG will be back soon, and we'll get to watch some real basketball. Our friend Davon, aka Schoolboy Beat, says, "I hope y'all don't let Nurse off the hook." And I'm glad that this was brought up. I think it's a good place to get to right now. My beef with how the first 2 games have been handled is I think Nick Nurse has crossed the threshold from experimentation to I'm just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping that something works. And I think that there's just been like a complete absence of any kind of stability, any kind of cohesion, right? And like I know we talked in the preseason about, hey, let's look at some different stuff. Let's see Yabu at the 5. Let's see these different lineup combinations. But to come into the regular season, and actually Mark Jackson says, what the hell is training camp and preseason for if we're going to look like this? I understand we have new players, but damn, look like a JV team. I think that's true to an extent, right? Like there's no way, even with all the new recruits that they brought in, even with their 2 main stars, or 2 of their main stars, I should say, out due to injury, there just is no way that you should have complete cluelessness when it comes to setting up a rotation, right? If the whole plan building this team was, okay, Joel's going to miss time, we're going to manage Paul George carefully, there was always going to be a point in this season where you needed to win games and at least play like a competent basketball team without those guys. And certainly if, again, coming back to them telling us everything's on schedule, we're following the plan for Joel Embiid, you can't say that and then come into the season without Joel Embiid and it's like, well, we just had no chance to put together a coherent rotation, right? Like that's not an excuse, because it's either one or the other. Either this wasn't the plan and this was just thrust on you, or it is the plan and you have not planned properly. Like this is just nonsense. I don't know what he's been playing, like 12 guys and throwing in like 17 different lineups. Like I'll have to consult with our friend Sixers Adam, because he logs every single lineup that's put together. His spreadsheet's got to be going crazy right now.
Yeah, no, and look, I'm sort of taking the stance with Nurse that I did with Maxey. Like, don't like the performances from the first 2 games, but it doesn't really change too much of what I think about him long term or going forward. But I don't think he had a plan. Not only with the rotations, but like the offensive structure coming into the like I said, the first 2 quarters just seemed like give Maxey the ball and everybody else can try to attack one-on-ones when they have it, and they don't have any players who can do that. So I thought there was definitely they just didn't seem like they were prepared. Which, to your point, they've been talking about this being the plan for Joel Embiid for a while. We've talked about our misgivings with that, but if that was the case, then they needed to be ready to execute without him. And again, it's not like anything Nick can do can make any of these guys better shooters or better creators. But you can try to put them in, or taller. Very, very good point. But it still seems like they are getting the bottom end of their potential out of this group through 2 games. And I just want to stress that through 2 games. But yeah, it's not been good.
Yeah, I just, I don't believe in the whole, well, just play everybody approach. That's a road to absolutely nowhere. And it wasn't like, look, it's one thing you play everyone and it's because guys came in garbage time. And I understand that Yabu and Drummond both being in early foul trouble messes things up, and there are some downstream effects of all that. But even with that being said, last year we saw with Nurse, like he was okay to ride guys through foul trouble, right? Like he went the opposite of the Doc Rivers approach, which is to pull guys at the first sign of foul trouble, and then effectively you made it so that foul trouble won. Well, tonight he was just like, oh, 2 fouls, automatic sub, 2 fouls, automatic sub, and played it like that. And I don't know. I was surprised by that for sure. It just seemed uncharacteristic for him. And, you know, as much as I view him as an aggressive, experimenting coach, it just has felt like he has not had his finger on the pulse through the first 2 games. It doesn't have to mean anything more than the first 2 games, but he's just reaching for solutions that are not there. So if you have to deal with these roster challenges, if you do have issues with creation and cohesion and all that, you got to at least try to keep the environment steady enough that the cat is really distracting, by the way. I'm sure it's even more distracting for you. You have to keep things steady enough that like guys know where their teammates going to be and they know when to make a rotation, when to make a cut. And I don't know how you do that when you're playing in lineups that I guarantee you, Reggie Jackson, Kyle Lowry, and Jared McCain have never played a second together, the 3 of them. And they got thrown out there tonight. For what? For what reason?
I guess he felt like he needed somebody to break pressure, but how are you going to defend with that group? How?
Right.
Yeah, no, it's been disheartening. It certainly has. And look, I don't think you have to worry about Kyle and I not being willing to criticize. I mean, Kyle just got a little bit of attention the other day for asking a question. We've both been yelled at by coaches. I think we're both fair, but we're not going to back down from asking tough questions. It is 2 games. Like I said, I don't think it necessarily changes how I feel about him as a coach, but it's been a tough 2 games for sure.
Yeah. But so listen, I just wanted to bring that up because I know people have not been happy with what he's done so far. And I will say, I agree. I don't think he has put his best foot forward, and he has certainly been culpable to some degree in why they've looked as out of sorts as they have.
Yep. Where else? We mentioned Caleb briefly. I thought besides his offensive struggles, he was uncharacteristically bad on defense. Again, another guy who seemed like he was overhelping on the perimeter, out of position a lot, just gambling for stuff he wasn't going to get and putting his team in compromised situations as a result. I don't necessarily think anyone was all that great defensively, and he was probably the one that I was most disappointed in just because I trust him the most.
Yeah, I thought it was a very uncharacteristic game for him because, you know, when you think of him, it's like the Heat culture nonsense, right? Like he's disciplined, he stays down, he's not reaching, he doesn't over pursue on closeouts. And he did all those things tonight, right? Like he was bad every which way, on ball, off ball, too aggressive, too passive, would change by the minute, but by and large, there was a problem. Most of the time he was on the floor. Had 3 turnovers on top of that too. So he was, you know, a little out of control on offense. Some of that is probably he's trying to make up for what was a poor night on the other end of the floor, but never felt like he settled into this game. I don't know. Maybe Nick Nurse was onto something, putting him on the bench. Maybe he just gets more out of him when he's a reserve versus a starter. But yeah, that was, I would say if we're talking about relative disappointment, he's very high up in this game because he's one of the guys that I expect to bring some level of game intelligence, basketball IQ,
stability. Yep.
Yeah, like that's one of his main roles on this team. And he was, again, that's the theme of the first 2 games. He was as much of a headless chicken as anybody else on this team.
Yeah. No, he really was. And it was just, there was really nobody on the floor. I mean, we joked about it, but like we were trying to pick a player of the game, and it was like, no, none of them. There was nobody on the floor that
there will be one. We'll get to that in the final segment.
We'll get to it, but it was tough, and Caleb was disappointment. Kyle, yeah, it was a tough one. All right, I think we probably have one more break here, and then we will get to the player of the game and a couple more stray thoughts after that. First up, we want to tell you about one of our newer sponsors here, and that is Glatt Hair Restoration. Anyone can buy equipment and say they do hair restoration. Only Glatt offers decades of proven results using an innovative approach delivered by leaders in the industry. Glatt Hair can help during all stages of hair loss with leading edge treatments for prevention and restoration, including laser light therapy, non invasive TED treatments, vitamin supplementation, topical and oral medications, PRP, and stem cell restoration, and hair restoration surgery.
Good thing you
Each
don't get
patient
paid to
receives
talk for a living,
Look, it is late and I watched a lot of bad basketball. Each patient receives a complimentary one-on-one consultation to pinpoint the best course of treatment. Caring patient advocates work with you from the first phone call to the last follow-up visit. They understand that this decision can be emotional and challenging, and they're here to help make your experience simple and stress-free. Glatt Hair isn't just about restoration. It's about innovation. Their breakthrough treatments really do dramatically change lives. Change your hair, change your life. Bald is now optional. If you want to improve how you look and how you feel about yourself, Glatt Hair has the right treatment for you. Regain your confidence. Visit glatthairmctr.com or call 610-980-4000 to get started.
And guys, I can't imagine why you would want to buy tickets to a Sixers game after watching that slop. But the good news is that there are tons of events, whether it's sports, whether it's theater, comedy, whatever it might be, music even, around Philadelphia, around your area where you live. We have a lot of people who live outside of the area who check in with the show. And Game Time and the Game Time Picks feature on their app makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier, because Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Look, Philadelphia has lots of great venues, right? Small, medium, large concert venues. You get to see acts of all different kinds. I'm sure the Sixers believe they're about to build one of the best and brightest in the city in 7 years or whatever it is, after Derek and I are hopefully doing something different with our lives than watching this trek. No matter where you are, no matter what you want to see, Game Time always has your back. And Game Time Picks curates events, so it makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. They have all-in pricing right there on the app. You toggle that feature, you get to see the total up front, so there are no surprise fees at checkout. You get seat views for panoramic views from your seat in the app before you buy. We found that very useful in Las Vegas, where we nearly bought obstructed view seats in the Sphere, which would have been a crime against humanity. Thankfully, Game Time saved us from what would have been one of the great regrets of my life. So you need to take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it, Derek?
It's game time.
There we go, baby.
Yay,
hey, I'm yaying for Game Time.
Woo!
I'm not yaying for that game. I'll tell you that.
You brought up Reggie. He's really the one signing that I just go, I don't really get that. I just don't. Like, give me a third
Paul
center
George's
instead of
friend.
that.
That's
Yeah, well, sure. But I mean, as a basketball player, I don't get it. And clearly, I think they could use another third string center. If Yabu can't play there, and I don't think he can, and Bona isn't ready, and I don't think he is, I would have rather, and especially if they're going to keep a 15th roster spot, because Josh Harris doesn't want to waste $5 million in tax money or whatever it would take to fill that last roster spot, which again, they're not going to be able to get to the second apron. So it's really just about tax money and another guaranteed contract, but they're not going to use that roster spot. Then using the one of the final ones on a, 6'1" guard, 6'2" guard who really can't play alongside most of your other guards and who's redundant with a lot of pieces. It would have been nice to have another option at center, but here we are.
I mean, even if you're not getting another center, there's like Lonnie Walker out there, right? Like somebody like that, a guy who is also a shot creator, but frankly has a pulse at this point. I think that would be a point of separation. So, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of different ways you could go with it. I didn't really get it or love it at the time. I don't get it or love it now. I think you would hope that at some point maybe he gets some burn in the middle of the season and catches a heater for a few games. And that's kind of the best case scenario. I think the best case scenario is that he doesn't play because the options they have are better. And in that case, it's like, find some cover other places. By the way, apparently the World Series is going completely off the rails because my Twitter is melting down saying this is their version of Steve Bartman. So that's very normal stuff happening in the baseball world right now. Do we want to talk about our player of the game, Derek?
Well, do you want to do that first? Or you want to run through these super chats because we got a couple more coming in here. We can do player of the game.
Let's do player of the game first. Do we have a beautiful graphic for player of the game, or are we just going to name it? Oh, yeah. It was Gershon, although I think probably in fairness, it should have been Kelly. But
I think probably Kelly. A lot of those points came towards the end, but he still had like 20 midway through the fourth quarter. So he was, he was making shots that he a lot of times doesn't make. But still, when he's making them, you got to give him credit. He got to the free throw line. He, at the very least, seemed like he had somewhat of a plan on a lot of drives didn't have a plan, but some of the drives did have a plan as well, and that made him a 1 of 1 in this game.
So I will say we told Bree Yabu ? And then that's on us. I think the official tabulation will say Kelly Oubre gets credit for one player of the game because he was passable, right? Like I'm just saying for like the eventual conclusion
No,
of the season.
I'm tracking this, so I will mark him down as a player of the game.
I think we give it to Kelly, even if a lot of the scoring came at the end. Even when his efficiency was in the middle of that game, it was not a Kelly game where I was like, oh my God, he's taking like 8 contested threes and he's putting up. His shots were going up as a function of how little else anybody else had. So I don't get on him for that type of like uneven game. And I thought he was mostly pretty good.
Yeah. No, I'm now tracking 2 things. I'm tracking Franklin the Dog's ability to make a half court shot at every home game, and I'm tracking our player of the games. So I will have those tabulations at the end of the season. All right. Running through some of the super chats here so we can start to wrap this up. Mark Jackson asks, how much will PG and Embiid's absence affect the long-term cohesiveness of team play in the near future? We look way behind other teams. He's noting specifically the Knicks.
Yeah, look, this has been, I wouldn't say I've been sounding the alarm on this, but I've at least raised it as hey, let's keep an eye on this. I do think the important thing in the short term is that they can win games with their talent with Joel and PG available as the cohesiveness catches up. I think the problem is that once you lose that top end talent and you still have the cohesiveness problem, that's when you get games like tonight, right? Where Maxey struggles and, we don't think that'll be presumably a long-term issue. But if Maxey is not, A+ Tyrese, then you're relying on a cast of characters that have the creation issues that they have, that are better suited to be guys playing off of genuine stars, and you have all the chemistry problems on top of that. So it is going to be tough sledding for these guys in the short term. I guess the hope would be you take your lumps early, and then mid-season, when you do try to give Joel and PG off nights, that these guys will be better suited to win games at that point.
Yeah. I still think that the big 3 fits so well. And by the way, he brought up the Knicks. The Knicks got absolutely smoked by this. Now, granted, it was the Celtics. They still got absolutely smoked on opening night. So maybe, don't pat them on the back.
No, they smoked Indiana tonight. So that was,
they did. Although Indiana's looking pretty rough so far, but then again, those in glass houses.
Yeah.
No, look, I think the big 3 fit so well together that I can see them getting chemistry pretty quickly. And most of the role players, when they slot back into their more natural role, I think they will know how to play it. But certainly there is a cohesiveness and a connectiveness that even if the skill sets fit very seamlessly, will take some time to develop. That's why, we've brought up the question on the back-to-back, should you rest them both or should you try to stagger them? I think given the fact that they have to actually make the playoffs and looking at how they've looked in the first 2 games, you're going to want to, get a top 6 seed and you're going to want to win some games. I think you probably stagger them, but it's a very fair concern. Like, they have to look good and they have to spend some time together, and you just can't throw away that many games right now.
No.
It's a fair point. All All right. This one from Al, 2-minute warning. Appreciate you. 38% from the field, 31% from three. Missed 13 free throws, 17 turnovers, and get out rebounded. 54-28. You can't be the Hornets doing that.
Yeah, I mean, aside
Yeah.
from that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln?
Outside of shooting, taking care of the ball, and rebounding, yeah, they were great.
Outside of being bad at everything, it was a pretty good game tonight. So that's that about sums it up, right? I would say if I highlighted one thing from there that is, I think, something to watch as they get healthier in the star department. Not inspired by the amount of shooting that they have on this team, and
No.
I know that Paul will be a big part of that. I know we expect Tyrese to shoot a lot better and get cleaner looks with the other guys out there, but with Eric Gordon looking as he does right now, it's going to be tough to find shooting unless Nurse finds the willingness to play Jared McCain a lot more this year.
Yeah. No, I mean, this was something we talked about over the summer, specifically the Oubre and Martin combination. Oubre has been a bad shooter throughout most of his career. A lot of people were banking on the fact that he shot, I think it was 37% from three with Embiid on the floor. That was on a small sample size. I don't think the sample size was big enough to throw out his career ineffectiveness from the perimeter. But the combination of him and Martin, who has been a streaky, especially in the regular season shooter, left quite a bit of concerns. And we've talked a lot about the fact that if you want to get more ball handling and shooting on the floor, you had to put short people next to Tyrese Maxey, and quite frankly, short and old people next to Tyrese Maxey. None of those are good solutions. That's why we have both earmarked a shooting guard as a likely target. But yeah, no, the shooting has been a concern for sure. And I do think someone like, I think he had a lot resting on Gordon still being playable. So far, he has not been. But I do think of the role players, and look, every role player is going to have a tougher job when Embiid's out of lineup. He's probably impacted as much as anyone. And once he tries to, become a creator and take guys off the dribble and challenge guys at the rim, you see some warts start to show through. So yeah, I think you don't want to make a full evaluation of the role players until they actually play with the stars they were brought in to complement. But it's not been great. It's not been great. Scott Sotan. Now we know we need another 5. Bono needs G League time. Let Yabu be a 4. Trade for Bassi or pick up Metu. Trade KJ for a shot creator in January. Didn't expect to see a Charles Bassi reference on this one.
I was going to say, been a while, old friend. I would say it's fairly unlikely they're going to trade for anyone, especially in the short term. I did make one of my predictions heading into the year. They will acquire another big. So my predictions right now, I'm feeling pretty good, man. This is the pat ourselves on the back show from time to time, but already that one seems to be lining up to come to fruition. So
yeah,
I don't know what that will look like or sort of what that player archetype looks like. Presumably it'll be someone who maybe is more of a switch defender and has some more height and rim protection skills than Yabu, but not exactly easy to find those guys just, laying around on the scrap heap.
Nope. No, it is not. But I mean, I agree with pretty much everyone. I think they need another center. And we've been talking about backup guards for quite a while, or guards as an acquisition for quite a while. Last one here from Davon, a.k.a. Schoolboy Beats. 3rd string center, big facilitator, shot creator, shooting. I guess he's listing out what the team needs. I think if you've been listening to the show here tonight, and certainly over the last couple of weeks and even months, I think we agree with all of that.
Yeah. While we're on the way out here, do want to remind people to sign up for our Die Hard program. We've already had a few different articles coming out of game 1. We'll have plenty more articles behind the paywall in the days, weeks, and months to come. The Discord,
I was going to try to do a likes and dislikes column, but I'm not sure I can find a like right now.
It'll be all dislikes. But our Discord has been super active. Had a lot of people joining recently. There's a new promo rate. So if you go to allphly.com, you can find out. Look at that. Limited time intro offer. You get all the perks that we've been offering over the last year plus for an initial friendlier rate for you guys on the other side. So check that out today. And obviously, as we always say at the end of our shows, thank you everyone for showing up. These are the nights where it's especially impressive that anybody cares to hang out with us, right? Where everyone's just frustrated. They lost to a glorified G League team. Look at Davon sneaking in another super chat while we're on the way out here. Where he said, Maury said he wants third center on the rights to Ricky. I think it makes a lot of sense, right? Like, I think you can see the logic behind getting a guy who might be taller than 6'8", who can protect the rim. I don't think there's any mystery to why they'd want to do that. And I think Bona picking up a foul 26 seconds after checking into the game shows you exactly why he's not going to be the solution to that problem. More than likely
not this year.
Season.
Yep. I'm going to do the world famous, the roll call.
Is it time for a roll call around here?
Time for a roll call.
I think it's time for a roll call. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us and with super producer Bree tonight. Even though Devon Gibbons didn't show up to do his job, you guys all showed up and hung out with us. So we really appreciate that. Want to say thank you and shout out to my girl Winona, to Yeah Boy. Haven't seen that one in a while or before. So shout out to Yeah Boy. Valhos in the chat.
Did you ask Pop that question?
Oh my God, what are you doing?
My cat, I have a soundboard. My cat accidentally bumped it. I'm sorry.
Your cat just hit the Doc Rivers. Would you ask Doc or Pop that
I've got another one.
I'm gonna say it slow so we can all pick it up.
That one was me.
Oh,
I apologize for interrupting your roll call.
Oh my, that was too funny though. Shout out to your cat. Shout out also to AA Ron, to Mom's grandchildren, to Vincent Pellegrini, who's in here with us instead of cooking up fake Joel Embiid trade proposals because he was confronted with the reality of what trading Joel Embiid would look like on this team. Shout out to Vince for hanging out with us on a Friday. Hello also to SB Cole, to our guy Al, the 2-minute warning, to who else is in here today? To Lawrence Talley, to Noob, to MBD, BDBF. I almost always mess that up. I finally got it right. Foxy Jane 88. Dude Man 19 hang out with us. That feels like a username I would use. Edward Sterling, Tom Jackson, Mark Jackson, You a Fraud, Marty Bones, Superb. Very simple to the point. Fusion. We had a lot of new faces, friendly faces, familiar faces with us tonight. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to our girl Jess hanging out in the chat. Thank you to everybody who super chatted with us tonight. I believe that was Mark, Davon, and I'm blanking. Not Corey. Corey was our pregame. It's a Friday night, guys. You're going to have to forgive me for the forgetfulness, but thank you for all the super chats tonight. Thank you for spending a Friday night with us. Hit the subscribe button on the way out. Hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time that we go live. Maybe next time Derek will hit the Doc Rivers soundboard again. And hit the thumbs up on this video. I'm going to say it slow
so we can all pick it up.
Hit the thumbs up on this video to say thank you to super producer Bree, who spent her Friday night with us as well and had to sit here and watch that same garbage that you guys did. We'll be back for pregame and postgame. Indiana Pacers on Sunday evening. Maybe Devon will even be there. Until then, enjoy your weekend. Stay safe. And as always, choose chill. Choose a lot of chill.
We all silly like the mayor.